Hey guys, it's Jason back again for video 8, building the Riptide. We got the custom gun arms we're going to do, and today we're going to be working with the green stuff. Green stuff is just like a two-part modeling epoxy. You can sculpt it, you can, once it's cured and everything, you can sand it, drill into it, do all kinds of stuff. It's great. Once you open these, you do want to kind of keep them separately, but you also want to keep them in just like a little kind of a, doesn't have to be super airtight, but if you leave it out like this all the time, it'll just kind of dry, get kind of gross. So it comes with like a plastic wrapped around it, and it'll have these like a little metally or foil, I guess, on the ends. Pop the foil off one side, and you know, I'll unwrap it when I'm gonna cut some bits off of it, but then I typically keep it wrapped up and in this little tub here. Off to the side here, I've got just a little bit of water in a little container, nothing serious, and I got like a damp paper towel because I want to kind of I want to kind of wipe off this little cut mat that I've got here, but additionally I kind of want it to be damp, because this stuff, whenever you start putting it together, it sticks to everything. It can be difficult to work with. I think like all two-part epoxy putties and such, there's a hardener, and that's the blue, and then there's the, I don't know, the yellow side. What I do know is the ratio in which you mix this is usually just, you know, equal parts, but if you need more time before it cures, you can mix more of the yellow in, and if you don't need as much time for it to cure, then you mix more blue in. So it'll be either a lighter green or a darker green, depending on what your application is. Today we're going to put this weapon together with our little nub piece securely inside, and we'll probably put some around here so that we can kind of file it down, and we're going to put some in to fill this trough where our little magazine piece is going to go in there. So to kind of fill this big gap section here, we're going to put some inside of here and kind of push it into the hole on this peg piece so that it holds on to it a little bit tighter. And yeah, and then on top of that, we're gonna glue the two halves together and go from there. So that's the plan for this video, to get this heavy burst cannon ready to just be fitted right onto this nub piece. We'll also fill in our empty cavities here and kind of clean this up with the green stuff as well, to make this like a solid piece, so that when you do pull the halves apart, you won't see this empty cavity. So that being said, we can just get going with it. I'm going to use just an X-Acto knife, and you're going to want to get that blade kind of, just get some water on it, and then I'm just going to unwrap the yellow, and you can see that the yellow is quite a bit sticky stickier than the blue. So we're gonna need kind of a fair amount. We've got kind of a lot that we need to fill, so I'm just gonna kind of cut a chunk off of the blue. You can see how it's sticking on there, but this yellow is nuts. It sticks to everything. I am mixing a little bit more blue because I don't have any like detail work that I'm doing. I'm mostly just filling in gaps and you know, creating less of a void on some of the parts there. I am going to wrap this back up and put it away in my little container before I move on. Alright, so this stuff is pretty easy to manipulate. Unless it starts getting hard, then it gets really, like if you leave it out in the air, it'll get hard and then it gets really difficult. Also, it's a good idea to kind of keep your fingers moist while you're mixing it here together. And it will turn about the same color green as my little cut mat here, but I don't want to put it on the white mat because it will get a little, if it gets stuck to it, then it'll mess it up. I'm not too worried about my cut mat as much as I am about the MRS Hobby Shop Warhammer 40K mat here. So alright, so now we've got it to the nice green color. You can see there it's roughly the same color as that. And what I like to do is I'll cut my piece off that I'm going to use, and then I'll stick the rest in my little water container over here just to kind of keep it moist. So I'm just going to cut the piece that I'm going to work with off and just set this over here on the side of my little water bit. You can, rolling it up tends to be the best way to kind of feed it into areas. So just kind of roll it into like a little snake and then just kind of stuff it down where you want to fill. You get it down there, and then I've got my mold line remover, and they have clay sculpting tools that you can get. I believe they have some here, in fact, at MRS, but and you can use those, or you can just use your X-Acto knife blade, or you know, whichever. But you just kind of want to have a tool that you can manipulate it, and just gonna kind of fill it down into these. You can use just a flat surface to kind of push it down into the little cracks and stuff like that, and then this using green stuff for this type of application is actually pretty easy. When you go to sculpt, it can become more difficult because, again, you've got the cure time that you're working with, and if you really just need to prepare. If you're going to be sculpting, you need to, if like you say you're sculpting like a cape or something like that, and you want it to kind of be flowing out, well, you're going to need something that's going to prop up that cape, or else it's just going to kind of sag, which is kind of it's happened to me before. And you know, once you see that it's sagging, you gotta find whatever you can and just try to get it under there. It is just a lot of, you know, am I happy? Is the gap that I'm trying to fill, is it filled? Sometimes working on like a glass top also can be good for this stuff. And also note, it will, if you press it in with your finger, it will leave a perfect copy of your fingerprint. So if you don't want your, fingerprints all over your stuff in a bad way, then make sure that you're using some kind of a tool to scrape or remove. So I just got that little top gap filled there, and then I've got some residual here on this side that I'm going to kind of try to scrape off. You can let it dry and it'll kind of chip off, which might be easier than trying to manipulate it while it's wet, but you just want to make sure to try to get stuff off where you don't want it to be. So alright, so those two were kind of filled up. I'm going to hit this little gap on the top portion too. This stuff is also great if you just have like a gap in the model kit that you're using. That could be a mold slip, if it's like a resin type model or just a lower quality model. You can use this to kind of fill those gaps, and there's several on the market, but I just happen to like this. Now I filled one of my little holes here that I didn't want to fill, so I'm just going to kind of run my little pin drill blade in there to see if I can't, because I don't really want to lose that detail. It's kind of a alright, so we've got that pretty well. And it will swell up a little bit too, like, so you probably will have to do some touch-up sanding to it as it dries. It'll kind of, like, if it's perfectly flat now, you'll see it kind of bulge out a little bit, but that's nothing you can't just sand off. So there's the upper arm. It's ready to go, and then we're not going to be able to do much with this until it's completely cured, and that's going to take hours, but we'll just keep on plugging away on some of our other stuff here now. I've got this big bit, and I'm just going to kind of lay this little snake over in there like that. Super sticky stuff. I don't need the green stuff clear up here. I just kind of laid the snake in there. It was more to just kind of get it in there and start working with it. So if your fingers are wet too, you can kind of it wants to kind of slide a little bit, so that will work to your advantage. You can kind of slide it, kind of push it in and around these little crevices. Just make sure that your piece that doesn't slip too much, so you don't lose everything that we're working for here. It's just a game of kind of keep on trying to manipulate it until you get it where you want it to be. Alright, so I've got green stuff in the part in both halves. I'm just going to kind of squeeze it together and then kind of smooshed out. That's okay though, we can just keep kind of working it down, pushing it in. The flat side of a X-Acto knife is kind of nice too, to kind of scrape off what you don't need, the excess. And don't forget, we can just sand it if we need to. But the more you don't have to sand, the happier you're going to be at the end. Well, the happier I am at the end anyway. Pretty good there. I'm happy with that. filling this cavity up here.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Are you gonna make that cake? No, no. You said okay. Hey Mom, did you have a fork, 9/11?
This is the sculpty part. I kind of want to create a little ridge through here.
Okay, well. Alright, sounds good. Love it. Yeah, I've always liked that.
All right. Sometimes it's tough to just say, okay, that's good enough, and just put it down and let it cure, and then fix it on the back end where it needs to be fixed. But I feel like right now, aside from the fact that that's got my fingerprint on it, looks pretty good. Pretty happy with it. Alright, so I did fit the two halves together, but I am going to just run a little bead of glue along this the seam so that I can get that kind of stuck together. And then I'm also going to glue in the barrels on this happy little fellow. Just going to get some around that peg and push it back down. The green stuff is basically going to hold this thing good and tight in there. But it can't hurt to just, you know, put some of that plastic glue in there and let it kind of do its thing as well. Alright. So that's that. Oh, where's my barrels at? Here they are. Alright, we'll fit that in there. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Actually, it looks pretty good. I may come in after all of this is cured and everything, and I may trim this armor piece in a little bit closer and then let it kick out just for aesthetics, so it's not covering big sections of it. But overall, I'm happy with the overall look of it. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Sometimes you just need to leave it alone, because now my little mold line remover wasn't wet, and it started to pull some of that stuff out. So that's what you can end up undoing some of the good that you've done. So the best thing is once you're happy with it, just kind of let it sit. So that's what we have. We've got our arm piece, our gun piece, connected with a little push-in socket. This will be, we'll glue this in whenever we pose it. But other than that, that's our gun arm done. And it looks pretty good. Alright guys, till next time we'll be working on the final assembly, because everything else is pretty well complete. We'll see you then. Thanks.